everyone. This is Mike.
And this is Josh.
And this is Must See Before You Die. And today we are going behind the scenes, diving into deep some information on Friday the 13th, part what, Josh?
Part 4, the final chapter. Now, this movie has actually a lot to discuss, Mike, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot to discuss with this one. So I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, you may have some more facts or behind the scenes things that I don't have, but I'm going to throw this up here. So right off the bat, you got Corey Feldman as Tommy with his head shaved right before he throws the old, actually his sister, I think. No, she hit him with a machete. Then he comes back and finishes him off with a machete. But it says that it got a 24 and a 51. What do you think about that, Josh?
I don't know. I think 24 is a little harsh for the critics, in my opinion. 51, though, is about right, in my opinion. 51 is about right. It's a little better than half, like a tiny bit better. So,
yeah, I think I gave this one a 2.75, 2.5, 2.75. 3 is average for me. So,
yeah,
it's right there around the 50% mark for me. So, I can kind of see that. I did think it was, again, I said it earlier, it was better than some of the previous ones. But let's go ahead and jump into some of the behind the scenes kind of trivia or facts that we found out about this. But it says there's a subtle Easter egg reference. A part 1 actress, Robbie Morgan, is really Nurse R. Morgan in this movie. So Annie, who was played by Robbie Morgan in the very first Friday 13th, the nurse, there's a scene at the very beginning of this with a nurse, and she's making out with a guy named Axel. She has on her tag, it says R. Morgan RN. So that's kind of a reference back to Annie, Robbie Morgan, who played Annie in the original.
Right, and she was the first victim in the first movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Peter Barton accepted a role based on Amy Still's advice. So Peter Barton is the good-looking guy that ends up getting killed in the shower scene in here. He's making out with the virgin, supposedly, and he had some other thing going on, a series going on, whereas him and Amy Still were in it together. He didn't want to take the role on because he was afraid it was going to ruin his career. He'd already did one other, I think it's called Hell Night. He'd already done that one as a horror movie, and it didn't do well. But Amy Still said, "Hey, you need to do this." So that's the reason he took on this role.
Yeah, this guy, to me, when I first saw him, I'm like, is that Zac Efron's dad? I mean, the guy kind of had like the Zac Efron face.
He's too good looking, man. He's too good looking for these movies.
Yeah.
So Ted White, who plays Jason, behind the scenes, he was kind of the guardian angel for a lot of these young actors. A lot of people don't know this, but he was 58. The next line, he says he was 58 years old. But like this Peter Barton character that was in the shower, where he has his head shoved into the wall and it like crushes his skull in. Ted White said, who played Jason, is like, of course he's a stuntman. He's like, y'all need to set up a separate wall there to help cushion some of that blow. Also, the girl that was in the infamous rubber boat that never sunk, it was in December being filmed, and it was very low temperatures, and they were making her. They were not being very modest. Number one, with her, she was completely naked, and they had her playing in this cold water. They wouldn't let her go in between shoots back and warm up. And Ted White, who played Jason, he's like, if you guys don't stop this, I'm walking off the set. I'm done.
Yeah, so, that's great.
And then he was also him and Corey Feldman, believe it or not, years later, kind of had a little riff going on. But he thought, excuse my language, but Corey Feldman was a little shit. He was a little spoiled brat. But he also said that he did a great job acting. So I think they kind of made up later on. But so the Jason was a guardian angel for some of the young actors in this movie.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
So Jason was a fondler in the original screenplay written, and he had messed around with Trish Jarvis. This kind of goes back to the previous movie where luckily they took all that out, that he was a rapist. But this originally was written in here, and Zito, the director, he had hired somebody to as a screenwriter to help him write it. Really, they wrote it. He just got paid for it. They took that out, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah, I'm glad they did too. There's no need for that.
Nah. So then got Crispin Glover's in this movie,
Yeah.
and he was based on an eccentric way. He actually danced in the clubs back then, and on the set he was dancing to "Back in Black" by AC/DC as the scene was filmed. In the film, however, it was edited out, and "Love Is a Lie" by Lion was put back into it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That was something I knew from years ago. I just, for whatever, and I heard that years ago, and it's kind of stuck with me. But yeah, Crispin Glover's dancing is epic. I don't know what he's doing, but it's a dance, no doubt about it.
Kind of reminds you of the what's the lady now with playing Wednesday and her dance, right?
Yeah.
So
Ortega.
in one scene, Rob talks to Trish about his sister Sandra. Sandra was one of Jason's victims in the Friday the 13th Part 2,
Yep.
1981. So in that scene, her and her boyfriend, she ends up getting killed and stabbed through. They were in the bed making out, and the spear comes through the bed. They were also the couple that went over to the looking for the old campsite. But this
Yep.
character in this movie, Rob, who is looking for his sister, and we had talked about it in a previous one. It makes no sense time wise, does
Right.
it, Josh?
Because this movie takes place. So the movie one. No. Movie number 2 takes place on Friday the 13th. Movie 3 takes place on Saturday the 14th. Movie 4, the final chapter, takes place on Sunday the 15th. So, yeah, the timeline. This film franchise has always had a really hard time with timelines and keeping them straight and just messing that up. Really, I mean, you kind of got to throw that and logic all out the window and just kind of enjoy the films for what they are. You know what I mean, Mike?
Yeah,
Because if you try, you're gonna go nuts because they don't make no sense.
true. So also, Ted White was uncredited as Jason Voorhees by his own request because he felt it would hurt his career. Years later, he grew to accept his role and started appearing at horror conventions. So I saw
Yep.
something. I think you had sent me something from Dead Meat, and they said I don't know if he's still alive or not, and how many years ago that was
I
out.
think he passed. I think he did pass, Mike.
Did he just pass? So yeah,
I
he
think
was in
so.
his mid-90s and still attending these conventions and stuff. That was
Yep.
pretty cool.
Yep. He actually I don't know if you have it here, but he actually was a stunt double for John Wayne at one point in time.
Oh wow, that's killer.
Yeah. Yep.
So it also says the film, and we kind of touched on this a little bit. The film takes place on Sunday the 15th and beyond, which makes it the second Friday film not to actually take place on a Friday at all, while the beginning with the coroners takes place during the night of Sunday the 15th. The rest of the film takes place on Monday the 16th, with Tuesday the 17th being the climatic night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just dumb.
So this is the only movie in the entire franchise to feature any kind of male nudity below the waist. Ted's, who's played by Lawrence, I think Montesson, and Paul's, Alan Hayes, buttocks are shown during the scene where many of the characters are skinny dipping.
Yep. And they did that.
Finally,
they did that to show solidarity with their female co-stars who were written naked. And so they were not written naked, but they said, we're going to do this just to be solidarity with the female stars that actually have to get naked. So, because they're written that way.
Okay. So then in the box office, this had a budget of $1.8 million and it made $32.6 million at the box office. So it was a pretty big hit.
Yeah. And that's why it was not the final chapter, Mike.
Yeah. It's, it could have been a good final. I don't know.
The next one, I mean, there's no secret. The next one's called A New Beginning, I think, Mike, if I remember right. I think the next one's called Halloween, A New Beginning. And I mean, we'll get into that once we get to that movie, which is going to be later this year. We'll get into a couple more. But this movie actually starts the Tommy Jarvis trilogy. You got 1, 2, and 3, which is like their own trilogy, in my opinion. Then you got this one, which is still connected to those, but it starts a new trilogy where you have a main character named Tommy Jarvis, who is in this one as a child. He's in number 5 as a main character, and he's probably like a late teenager or something like that. Like 5 years go by or something. He's like 17, 18. Then you have him in the third, the sixth movie as a character as well. So the Tommy Jarvis trilogy is starting with this one, in my opinion.
Okay.
So, I mean, what do you think about that, Mike? Did you like that they had Did you like they actually had like a reoccurring character that didn't get killed off for 3 movies?
Well, I mean, Laurie Strode did it for her whole career, so all the
Halloween. No, I'm talking about for Friday the 13th, Mike.
Yeah. So I mean, I kind of like that. I just wish, in all honesty, I wish it would have been Corey Feldman.
Wait a minute.
I know time wise, they maybe could not have done that, but I know Corey Feldman came back and did a guest appearance in the background in some of them. But
wait a minute, you're wrong, Mike. Laurie Strode, I got to enter this. Laurie Strode did get killed off in a Halloween movie. Halloween Resurrection, she was dropped out a window and died. That character died, but brought back in a different trilogy that had nothing connected to that. So, but that's beyond the point. You're right. He did come back in the 5th movie and made a cameo, but by that time, his star was woo, and they couldn't afford him. So that's why he was not in the 5th movie very long at all.
He'd probably love to come back now if they could somehow pull it off.
Yeah. I mean, I like Corey Feldman. I know he's kind of like people make fun of him.
Very eccentric.
But the guy is, I mean, you can't take away that the guy who's been in some of the most best movies of the 80s. I mean, he was in Gremlins, he was in this, he was in Goonies, he was in Lost Boys. He was in Stand By Me, which is excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy has a good filmography from the 80s, for sure. I mean, later he starred in some, stinkers and bombs and stuff. I mean, he was in License to Drive with Corey Feldman, which was like a big movie for them. And, but yeah, I mean, the guy, and the guy was like best friends with Michael Jackson, like the most famous man in the world at the time. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So, like I said, I like Corey Feldman. I always have. And, like you said, he's eccentric. But I still, every time I see him on TV, even now or whatever, I always stop and listen to what he's got to say or whatever it may be. I do like Corey Feldman still.
Yeah, he's a horrible singer, but I still watch him dance. I mean, even at 50 some years old, he can dance.
he is a excellent dancer, and the guy can mimic Michael Jackson's dancing to a T, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So any other behind the scenes that you have on this one, Josh?
No, well, I mean, this was filmed like Crispin Glover. He did this right before getting the George McFly role for Back to the Future. So, I mean, literally a year later, or maybe not even a year, he would explode from being George McFly in Back to the Future. So, I mean, this role was kind of like, a stepping stone to that role. So, yeah.
Well, one thing I didn't have on here, this was all shot in California.
Right.
Even though this supposedly Camp Crystal Lake is in New Jersey.
It's just cheaper.
Yep. So, cheaper and closer to everybody to get where they need to be. But
that's right.
That's all I got, Josh. I appreciate y'all listening to this. Please like, comment, subscribe. Yeah. Do you know any other facts behind the scenes maybe we missed? And what's your opinion of this movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you like Corey Feldman as an actor back in the day, back in the 80s, and how he did, a 12-year-old kid in this movie? I thought he did a great job. But
it won't be the last time we review one of his movies on here, because I know we will be doing The Lost Boys at some point.
Definitely did Lost Boys. All right, see y'all later. Have a good one. Bye, Josh.